March 6, 2027, the world changed forever in an instant. Part of the sky split open like a fresh wound, revealing an impossible wormhole. It led directly to GNZ-11, a distant galaxy within the Ursa Major constellation. That's approximately 32 billion light-years from Earth, further than human innovation could ever conceivably reach. The wormhole is so large that it's visible to the naked eye, resulting in what the SCP Foundation calls a partial lifted veil scenario. But far more interesting and surprising is the planet on the other side of it, GN667cc, an exoplanet roughly 250,000 kilometers from the wormhole. It's roughly the size of Mars in our solar system, covered in 85% water, and with a highly oxygenated atmosphere similar to Earth's ancient Carboniferous period. And to its inhabitants, it's always been known as Nest. These inhabitants are a civilization of creatures known as the Keradids. They are entities of considerable intelligence who look somewhat similar to Earth-praying mantises, each about the size of a human child. They're at a level of social and technological advancement that the Foundation believes it would take humans around 100,000 years to reach at our current level of experience. So naturally, they were initially worried that they could be looking at a War of the Worlds scenario here. But quite the opposite was true. When the hull first tore between space, the Keradids observed and, with their incredible technology, were able to assess that life existed here on Earth. Immediately, they attempted to establish remote contact, while the Foundation worked overtime on our humble planet to control the spread of unacceptable information. Of course, when a giant dimensional rip opens in the sky in front of billions of people, convincing those people that they didn't see what they saw is no easy task. Even with aerosolized amnestics, media disinformation campaigns, and the controlled release of powerful mimetic tools, this was a genie that seemingly refused to be shoved back into the bottle. Any attempts to brush all this off as some trick of the lights failed within 12 hours of the rift first opening. A message from beyond the stars was broadcast over all global radio networks, simply saying, "Hello, are we heard? Does this world think?" First contact had been established. Enter Agent Basil Sias, an extremely accomplished member of Site-58's Department of Anomalous Ambassadors, a division dedicated to facilitating communication between Foundation personnel and anomalous entities. He worked to translate all the messages picked up by the Foundation's Rosetta AIC, and then liaised with the O5 Council to form their next plan of action. In this case, after a lot of persuading, they were convinced that humanity should reply with the SCP Foundation as their ambassadors. The Foundation studied the frequency on which the Keradids sent their message and replied simply with, "Hello, let's talk." And so began humanity's first true rapport with an extraterrestrial race. With some rather messy experiments involving D-classes, the Foundation discovered that humans could not pass through the SCP-7999 wormhole, so for their first official face-to-face meeting, the Keradids would send one of their own representatives to Earth, who would then be personally guided and communicated with by Agent Sias, given he'd brokered this whole thing from the beginning. Two Keradid envoys arrived, one named Katadanka and the other named Kartakekin. In a state of sheer excitement, they approached and began caressing Agent Sias. Kartaketin said,
"Look, they are soft and malleable. What a wonder! And upon their face, a chitinous material like our furred animals."
Sias, trying to remain composure, replied, "Whoa, hello, nice to meet you as well." Katadanka joined in.
"Truly fascinating to think a furred animal could be capable of thought, and only 4 limbs."
Sias asked the duo what their goal of their species' initial message to planet Earth was. Kartakekin spoke up.
"The portal was opened between our worlds, and our opportunity to speak was presented. We have sent our message to many planets over the ages, but this was the first to respond. We wish to meet. The species here is the first one like us we have ever seen. I have been looking at this world from a distance since the portal opened and wish to see what this planet holds, what the people here have created."
So that was the plan. Cultural exchange. Given there was no way of hiding all of this now, the best option seemed to be using Kartakekin as an ambassador to introduce this alien race to the world. and show the people of Earth just how big their universe truly is. But showing Kartakekken the world would prove to be an interesting hurdle. As Sias put it, to be completely honest, it's difficult to really decide where to begin. Humanity is not a monolithic species. There's a myriad of cultures and societies to potentially show you, and each would be different. I've got approval to take you off-site, so the world's our oyster. Of course, he then had to explain what the world's our oyster meant to Kartakekken. Human aphorisms don't exactly make that much sense to entities with none of our cultural reference points. But what Kartakekken seemed to take most interest in was concepts of early science, saying,
Science can explain anything with enough time, can it not? For example, science can explain why humans have a skeleton inside their bodies instead of outside. Certainly there is nothing here that cannot be explained with study.
That was a little too heavy a question to immediately get into. For the first part of their trip, Agent Sias decided to take Kartakekken to Site 120 Integration Centers. It was one of the sites focused on a future where the veil can be lowered fully, and humans and the anomalous can peacefully coexist. In an effort to explain the basics of human culture, Agent Sias took Kartakekken to one of the classrooms where they educate anomalous children. This is what I wanted to show you. This is a classroom, and there are places like this all over the world. They're where we take our young and teach them almost everything they need to know about being human. He explained their plan to return these anomalous children to the non-anomalous world in the future, and about how it was his life's mission to allow this kind of diversity to thrive. Kartakekken was fascinated by all this, but had a sense of melancholy about the fact that these kids couldn't just be allowed to live normal lives because of their differences. But this was only one stop of the tour, and there was still so much to go. They took a plane, which Kartakekken found to be an incredible invention, to Barcelona, Spain, where Sias asked some questions about the nature of the Caridid lifespan. Kartakekken, if we translated your age to Earth years, how old would you be?
1,743 years. I am aware I am very young, but please do not see me as unfit to be the envoy of my people.
Silas explained to Kartakekken how most humans do not live past 80 years. The human race has existed and proliferated in its current form for only around 200,000 years, and so many of its major inventions had occurred only in the last 300 or so years. Kartakekken was fascinated by all this, by humanity's ability to propagate. He begged to see even more. Sias walked him to a new location, a place full of water, lush green vegetation, and beautiful structures. It was an excellent balm to Kartakekken's curiosity.
What is this place?
Parc de la Citadella. It's one of the larger green spaces in the city. I used to take my daughter here all the time, so I figured you might enjoy seeing it as well. There's a zoo to see some native Earth life, some architecture. Before he could explain more, Kartakekken was already marveling at the plants and wildlife, but surprised that humans were the only creatures here that he could really communicate with. It dawned on him how lonely humans must have been out in this impossible, miraculous world, cut off from the rest of the universe. A loneliness they could at least now share. For now, anyway. Next, Sias took Kartakekken to La Sagrada Familia Cathedral, which meant that Sias had an awful lot of explaining to do. Kartakekken found the building strange and interesting, and pondered on why it was so different from all of the others. Sias said that it was an artistic choice, and when this baffled Kartakekken, Sias needed to explain the concept of art. Art is when you create something beautiful for other people to see, but art can also be creating something ugly for people to see. It's like a commentary on something in the world, or society. God, I'm not sure how to explain this. Take a look at the cathedral again. It's a work of art not just because it's pretty, but because of the history it represents. It's the work of dozens of architects combining their design in one massive collaboration. And it's a work that survived a civil war and disease. It's art because of what it represents, I guess.
Would it not be easier to believe in the same thing? Do these fundamental differences in thought not lead to conflict?
Everything I've shown you here so far, it would be completely different even just a few kilometers away in the same country. The further around the globe you move, the more different it is. Honestly, if I had to say, that's the greatest wonder of humanity. How different we all are. To illustrate his point, the power of art to connect, Sias bought them some canvases and paints before taking Kartakekken to a small cafe. Sias then took the time to paint a portrait of Kartakekin and show it to him, which caused a truly incredible reaction.
I feel joy. My hearts are beating with joy. This makes me feel significant. Could I make art? Or are only certain humans capable?
With the encouragement of Sias, Kartakekin attempted to paint him, which resulted in a canvas with a multicolored smear. But Sias was touched and resolved to keep it nonetheless. Then the two of them attended a tango class, and Sias had an excellent time teaching his strange new alien friend how to do all the moves. Sias said with some melancholy that this reminded him of his daughter, who'd since grown up to live her own life. Then, things changed. Sias's next notes on his investigation read, Kartakekin surprised me in my room the next morning. It insisted that we go to its home world right away. I was confused, to be honest. Well, there's still so much to see here, I remember saying. It had been hardly a week, but Kartakekin wouldn't take no for an answer. It spoke with a sense of urgency that couldn't be ignored. So we loaded up onto the shuttle alongside Ketadanka, the only thing that could pass through to the other side, and we left. Frankly, I expected more when passing through the portal. I'd grown up on the classic sci-fi movies after all. Something inside me was expecting this flashy jump to hyperspace as I'm pressed against the seat, holding on for dear life. It wasn't anything momentous at all. By all means, it wasn't any different than a trip to the moon. By that I mean no jumps, no sudden shifts in momentum. We were simply just there. And that was how Agent Sias came to be on a planet millions of light years away. Here, Kartakekin had much to explain to Sias, and sadly not much time to do it. Sias had done a kindness in explaining the ways of Earth to him, and now Kartakekin would repay that kindness.
This is Nest, our home, the only one we have ever known.
You never colonized other worlds?
We attempted it on many occasions. Our needs are very specific, and most planets we found were unsuitable. Planet Earth shouldn't be able to host life at all based on our calculations. It is not tidally locked, and the atmosphere is so thin. Likewise, it is so far from its host star that it does not receive the amount of solar energy that is required to support life. It is a miracle that humanity exists, and even more so that humanity is advanced.
Kartakekin led Sias through what appeared to be some kind of empty, ruined city, a dark and desolate place with no Caridid in sight. Soon, Kartakekin led Sias into a chamber where several other Caridid waited, along with a few hundred eggs. And Kartakekin revealed the news that hit Sias like a nuclear bomb. What he saw in this room was all the Caridid left, and the eggs in the nursery, they didn't seem to be hatching. Forgive my confusion then, because I just don't understand what the problem is. Kartakekin shone a light on the nearest egg, revealing the tiny Caridid silhouetted inside. It showed no movement, no sign of life.
We've accepted extinction.
You can't be serious.
I am. We accepted it long ago, once the old began dying. Soon hundreds became dozens, and dozens became 8. What hope was there left for us?
With all your technology, surely you could...
Sias, please. We know. And I know that Sias knows as well. We have tried everything we can. We are not afraid. We accomplished our goal in the end.
Trying to even comprehend the sheer horror of this, Sias asked Kartakekin what the goal was in all this. If they knew they were doomed to extinction.
To meet another like us. Another capable of thought. From the beginning we worshipped the idea that our planet was not alone. That despite how impossible life should be here, it existed regardless. And therefore, there had to be another.
As it turns out, the Caridid had been searching for other lives out in the cosmos for 2 million years. And in that time, before creating the wormhole, everywhere they found was barren. It seemed almost like the rule of the universe itself was not life, but death. And now, after all this time, after war and other horrors had ravaged their own planet, and infertility drove them to the brink of annihilation, they had found other lives out there. And now, Sias would need to go. Something that both the Caridid and the SCP Foundation realized was that the gravity of the wormhole was pulling the 2 planets closer and closer together over time. If the portal wasn't closed, inevitably both planets would be destroyed, and everyone would be killed. So Kartakekin would send Silas back, and his people would close the portal, giving them only enough time for a few parting words.
We are so small, are we not?
How so?
We have searched every star we possibly can over our existence to find another like us. Many have died searching, hoping there was something else out there. Dying, never knowing that there was someone else. But even in knowing, we were only able to know them for such a short time, it might as well have never mattered. These moments were fleeting, and now they're over.
You're right. We are small, and it would have been nice to have more time together. You all know it better than we do, but the universe is vast beyond our comprehension. When we die, the stuff that makes us ourselves will return to that universe. Will become the matter that makes up the next stars, or even the next civilization. We become a part of that universe, don't we? The two shook hands. This moment was fleeting, but we were lucky to have ever had it. And no goodbye is forever, so I won't say goodbye here. Instead, I'll say, I'll see you in the stars.
I will see you in the stars.
Later that night, Kartakekin himself made a note saying,
Sias left, returning to the headquarters where Kitadanka would take it home. I returned shortly after, but by the time I arrived, they had already left. One of the others who remained behind handed me something, a gift from Sias. Inside was a set of brushes and paints. While the others worked to close the portal, I returned to the cavern below with my gift. I laid the brushes out and began to paint. It wouldn't be a wonder, nothing like what I had seen on their planet, but it would be beautiful. I worked long into sleeping time and into the next day, stopping only to eat. Sias would never see it. No one from Earth would, but it would be a memento of my times there. When it was finished, I sat my brushes down. There it was, my landscape of stars with a Caridid and a human looking to one another. I looked around and saw the blank space that remained on the cave walls and began planning my next masterpiece. In the distance, I could swear I almost heard the sound of something cracking,
like the soft shell of an egg. Perhaps this had not all been for nothing. Perhaps hope would prevail. Perhaps the eggs would crack, and the next generation of Caridid would live and thrive. And someday, in the far-off future, the two species would meet again. And when they did, Kartakekin would have such a beautiful painting to share. Now check out top secret space SCPs more terrifying than an alien invasion, and other insane SCPs and NASA lies, SCP-2001 Space Oddity, for more.